much for tuning in to the Brown Mama Blueprint podcast. I am here. I'm your host, Muffy Mendoza. I'm the founder and executive director of Brown Mamas. We are a local support group for African American moms, and we focus on providing Black moms in our city with positive socialization and opportunity to connect with the resources and information that will help them to raise happy and healthy adults. And I'm here today with Latifah Miller. Latifah is well known in the Pittsburgh region for being an advocate, a mentor, a lover on of young Black girls. We love her. I've known Latifah since I first started Pittsburgh Brown Mama. She was one of the moms who participated in my hashtag Good Mama campaign. And I've always known her to be a woman who has deep convictions and a woman who is not afraid to stick her neck out for other people and for what she really, really believes in. So I appreciate her. And I want y'all to know more about her, as well as about all of the stuff that she does in our community for African American mothers and the daughters that they are raising. So Latifah, tell us a little bit about you and who you are now that I done, kissed you all on your face. Tell us a little bit about who you are from your perspective.
I am a transplant to Pittsburgh from Philadelphia. I came here to go to the University of Pittsburgh, and I never left. So I have been here for quite a number of years. I am the founder of Daughters of Zion, which is an enrichment program for girls and young women. I've been doing that for about 7 years. We are now also in the process of starting women roundtables, which are gatherings that I have with adult women to kind of talk about some of the issues that we go through. The Women's Roundtable is more designed to give a safe space to women who are strong, who are confident, who are doing their thing, but don't really have that space to talk about some of the things that we do struggle with internally while we are thriving and striving. Through Daughters of Zion, we do a lot of different programs. We do Daughters of Zion Cares, which we call DOZ Cares, where we give back because we think it's important for young ladies to understand the value of giving back to the communities that support them. But we also do Girl Talk, which is twice a month, where we get girls together in safe spaces. Daughters of Zion is really geared towards good girls, actually, because there's not a lot of differences between good girls and bad girls, other than bad girls have typically gotten caught for the things that they are doing. Good girls sometimes are doing the same things. They just have the persona of a good girl. And so they don't really have the safe space to talk about it because nobody knows sometimes that they're doing the things. They don't know the risk that they're taking. So we get together twice a month to kind of talk through those issues, to give girls spaces to talk about things they're not so comfortable talking to their mothers about, and to just cultivate good, healthy relationships with them, and to remind them that everything that they are going through, that there are women who look like them who've been through what they have been through. Because we as women often, we hide our scars, we hide our scarlet letter and kind of pretend like we got there by osmosis when we really haven't. We've gotten there through trials and tribulations. And so, there's certain things that we've done it's safe to talk about. Like we live in a day and age where it's safe to say, oh, I used to be addicted. But we don't live in a community where it's safe to say, I've had an abortion. That's a little bit more taboo than some other subjects. But our girls are still going through these things. And so they need women to help them navigate through life.
And I'm so glad you brought up, this was not on our list of questions, but it just, when you brought it up, I was like, that so needs to be talked about. I actually, for our Brown Mama monologue show this year, I actually did a monologue, and it was actually about me having a late term abortion. And there are so many things that happened to me as a teenage girl, growing into being a young adult, having a teenage child, or having a child as a teenager, and then having to kind of figure it out on my own, that I would not have been comfortable talking about had I not met other women who were willing to be transparent. But I wanted to talk, that's an interesting subject that you bring up about, good girls are basically just bad girls who haven't been caught yet. So I wanted to talk about transparency between mothers and daughters. Like, how can we, number one, what can mothers do to encourage more transparent talks between themselves and their daughters? And number two, how can moms get the courage to be transparent with their daughters? Because I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, it definitely is the hard part. And it's the hard part because we don't have the courage to talk to our own family members, our own girlfriends, our own partners. So, how
Yes.
can you be like in the subject of abortion? How can you be honest with your child about how to take care of her body and what choices that she does and doesn't have, what your family's beliefs are, and where you stand with it when you haven't been honest with anybody about your own convictions? So the
Mm-hmm.
courage comes from getting transparent. The courage comes from taking your mess out of those secret places and beginning to deal with them and beginning to talk about them. And then when you become more comfortable with it, it's a lot easier to have those conversations with your daughters. So that's the piece of the courage. The transparency comes, you just have to be honest in front of them. You don't have to be open, because we all know of those moms that are kind of doing too much and showing their kids too much, and you think their
Mm-hmm.
little girls are grown and things of that nature because mom has zero filter. You do have to have some type of balance, but another piece of it is creating a village of women around your daughters that they can feel free to talk to. Not every woman needs to be pouring into your daughter, but you should have those certain somebodies and make it known that, listen, if you don't want to talk to mommy and you don't want to talk to auntie, you can talk to godmom, you can talk to miss so and so, and establish those people for your daughter. And those people have to be consistent and they have to be present in her life for her to understand that, yes, I can build this trust. Now here's the catch 22. When you do that, that also means that if she talks to auntie about something that she's not comfortable talking to you about, that can still be sacred between her and auntie. Auntie isn't
Mm.
obligated to come run back and tell mommy. So you really have to trust these women with your children, because maybe there's something that they're not going to tell you right away, to protect her confidence, to let her know that my word really means something and I got your back. You might say, Mom, there's some things going on, but I don't need to come back and tell you everything, because then as mom, we're still going to break that confidence and tell the child's going to know that you know, and now
Yeah.
they feel betrayed, and that kind of interferes with that whole transparency that you're trying to build. And so again, it starts with you as a woman. Do you have those solid relationships with women that you trust, that you can trust your kids with?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And that's,
hard.
yeah. I think that is hard because I never thought about that, but I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, because I think as a parent, especially if the woman that the daughter is confiding in is a parent herself, it's hard to keep that secret because it's like you're thinking like if it was my daughter, I would want to know, especially if it's
Exactly.
something that might be detrimental to the child. But if you don't keep the confidence, then there is a chance that the child's not going to tell you anything anymore. So then there's no
Mhm.
safe space at
Right. And
all because
you do set up boundaries. There are things that I tell my girls. If you're at risk, if your
mm-hmm,
safety is at question, I might have to talk to mom. So
yeah,
they know that there are some things where being adult trumps your secret completely. But even still, what I have been known to do is to say, you know what, mom, she has something she needs to talk about,
mm,
and she's nervous and she's anxious and she's not sure, and I'm going to be right here, but this is her story to tell, so she needs to tell you. And so sometimes mom might get a shallow version of the story. The mom might not get the intimate version that I got, but I allow the daughter to tell her mother her story for herself. And it's tough, and there's a lot of tears sometimes involved, because she might be ashamed of what it is that she has to tell her mother. And then coaching mom to say, you have to be accepting of whatever it is that they're telling you, even if you disagree, even if it is breaking your heart on the inside. You have to emotionally be supportive to your child in spite of what it is that they're telling you. And
mm-hmm,
so there's work that has to be done before the child can tell the mother whatever their truth is. One particular young lady, she had lost her virginity. She lost her virginity with a guy that her mom had already told her, don't mess with, don't bring no baby in. And mom told her everything she should have told her, and she did it anyway. And she got pregnant, and she needed to tell her mother that. It's a tough conversation, but I had to say, Mom, you can't tell her I told you. So she already knows you told her.
yeah,
That's your personal validation. Don't put that on her. Bring that to us. Bring that to your sister girls. But for
Mm-hmm.
her, you gotta be supportive. And so it's different because I don't know that we were raised with women that modeled that in front of us. So we
Yes.
don't know how to do it.
And that is the interesting thing I think that's happening in the Black community right now with men and women, is that so many of us, I feel like our generation in particular, with people who are right now between the ages of, I'd say, like 33 and 45, we are the first generations of Black people in America who are actually able to look at our lives with a critical lens. And when you look at it with that critical lens, sometimes you're like, okay, I might have did this and that wrong, or I might have did this and that right, but there's no map. Like there's nothing there that can really solidify for you, even with your ability to think critically about your life now, because of, not that racism is gone, it's still here, but we still live in better conditions than we did, in the 30s and the 40s.
Right.
So I feel like we are currently creating the map, right? And but we are still trying to figure out like what goes here. And like you said, we didn't necessarily have these things modeled for us as children. So
Right.
now we're able to look at our childhoods with this critical eye, and it's like, but how do I know what may work? I only know what didn't work. I don't know what might work. All I can do is like, I feel like we're all guinea pigs right now. Like we're testing things out on our kids and hoping and praying that it actually works.
Right.
But
Right.
I did want to talk a little bit about reality TV because I don't know, girl. Sometimes I'm just looking at these teenage girls and I'm like, yo, I know, like Wendy Williams said, I was dipping and doing it when I was a teenage girl, but not like that. Like, not with that much veracity, not with that much knowledge of sex and knowledge of what they have, because they got YouTube and stuff. So I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you the question, how do you think reality TV is affecting young girls, considering you spend so much time with them? And just words of wisdom for moms on guarding their daughters from those female interpretations.
Yes, it is definitely a different world. It is. And it is challenging because our children are raised up in a social media world. They don't know life without computers, without cell phones. Everything to them is electronic. So for us to say, put it down and read a book, that is not their reality. That is just not their reality. So to tell them not to do it is just almost unrealistic. Um, but you got to give them some boundaries. The other piece that I want to add in it that's different between our generation and their generation, to us, a lot of things seem to be sexualized, but to them, it is not sexual. So, for instance, when they're walking around in belly shirts, we grew up, cover your belly up. Who you showing your body to? To them, it's clothing. It's not sexual to them. It's just clothes. Their body is just their body. It is what it is. Their perception of it is different. So one, we have to be careful that we are not making something sexual when to them it was innocent. So that's a different twist on it, but it is something that we have to be mindful of. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to sit down and watch that reality stuff with them. You have to get into it. And I don't mean like binge watching it, but understanding the culture so that you can so that you can relate to it, so that you can have conversation about it,
Yeah.
so that you can ask critical questions and make sure that they are critically thinking through what they're experiencing, that they are being intentional about the choices that they're making, and that they're not just going through the motions and doing something because it seems to be the thing that's being done, but ask the question about the why. Well, how do you think that made them feel? Well, what do you think is going to be next? How's that going to play out? And really just taking that time to dive in. And then the other part is they are teenagers and they are young and they don't know and they're supposed to be figuring it out. And our responsibility is to help them navigate through the choices that they make. Our role is not to protect and to shelter them so that the first mistake that they make is when they're on their own. You want your kids to bump their heads while you're still there to teach them how do you recover from a fall.
Absolutely.
So sheltering them feels good as a mom because you want to protect your kids. But in terms of when you talked about like the purpose of Brown Mama, we want our kids to be successful, whole, competent adults. And so that protection game isn't going to work. And so sometimes you come on, let's have a watch party. Let's get the popcorn. Let's watch this. But also being clear, I don't really agree with that. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
think that's the, you know what I mean? Like you don't be into it just like they're into it.
Yeah. Looking at it with a critical eye. I know one thing that I do religiously with my boys, I play video games with my sons. I play video games with them. I watch their cartoons with them because while they're playing, I'm commentating. Like, I'm like, did you think about it this way? Did you look at it this way? Because
Mhm.
I feel like with kids have less of a filter than we have. So everything is just going in. They're just absorbing stuff, right? Whereas you have the ability as the adult to look at it with that critical eye. And I agree 100%. I think that, we as parents, we have to stop removing ourselves from our kids' lives, and we have to start immersing ourselves in our kids' lives, and also giving them the opportunity to make those mistakes and giving them the opportunity to fall, really. And I know my son, he at the beginning of the school year, he started working this job at Dunkin' Donuts. He was working 4 days a week. And I told him, I was like, "John, that's not gonna work. Like, you gotta go to school in the morning." My son is a straight A student. So I'm like, you got to go to school. You're taking harder classes. He's in calculus right now. He took physics last year. He's in it's called a mechatronics class. I said, you can't be tired in them classes. You got to be a student
Right.
paying attention. But he didn't listen to me. So I said, I'm going to leave it alone. And then 4 weeks into the school year, he's like, "Mom, I can't do this no more." I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
told you wasn't going to be able to do that. That's too hard. So I agree. We have to let them bump their heads, and we have to be more involved. And I know it's hard for moms because we're tired at the end of the day. We don't really want to play a video game. We don't really want to sit down and watch Love and Hip Hop if that ain't what we into.
Right.
But we have to do it because our kids need us.
Right.
Somebody had a couple of comments, Latifa. I'm gonna read them to you.
Absolutely.
Nicole said, "Why can't we say 'I told you so' and still be supportive?" I feel like reminding them to listen to the adults that know better, tried to save you. Trouble might help them reflect on that later.
I agree with you, Nicole. It's the timing of when you say I told you so. You can't say I told you no while your child is vulnerable. When they are in that reflective moment where they're like, oh my gosh, and they're feeling defeated and they've come and they're crushed because whatever you told them about is happening, that's the time to listen and be supportive. A little bit later, then you can have the conversation about, remember we talked about this before and I had suggested there's a time for that. It's just not in the moment where they're giving you their raw heart. That's all.
Gotcha. I agree. And then Yolanda said, "Yes, I agree." She's talking about being involved with your children. It can be a catch 22 for me because as a younger mom, I know from experience the lesson wasn't absorbed until I went through it firsthand. So, yeah, I agree 100%. So, Latifa, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I know moms may want to know the answer to this, is what are the common gripes that you hear from teenage girls about their mothers or their fathers or just their parents in general?
They don't trust me and they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. They don't understand. They don't understand. They won't let me go, and they won't let me go to Fright Night because the boy is going to be there, and I can't hang out with my friends at the mall. And they want that freedom. They want to be able to navigate and figure it out. And they think they can take on the world. We know better. No, you can't, baby. But you got to give them small pockets of where they can navigate. I'm the mom that said, "Oh yeah, yep, I'll drop you off at the mall." Meanwhile, I already had four girlfriends in the mall. It's already there. Yep, sure. Yep, you can
You
go to
said
the
you were
mall.
strategizing.
I need you at Macy's. You can go to Penny's. Like, come on. And they're like, "Oh, I bumped into Miss So and So, and then I saw something." Yeah. Oh, did you? Oh, really, baby? Really? Yeah, baby, because eyes were on you. So that if
Yeah,
in your what you thought was freedom navigate in a way that wasn't okay, there was somebody right there to see that, respond to that, observe that, but it wasn't mommy. so I wasn't the one embarrassing you. But so you just got to give them small little windows. And then, of course, be okay with them not being okay. That's just a part of it. And sometimes giving them choices. Okay, well, you can do A or B. Pick one or the two. I don't want to do either. Well, then you don't have to do anything. But
Mm-hmm.
you can go here with this one or you can go there with that one. But also in that following up and paying attention, because when our kids feel like they don't have freedom and they feel like they're not trusted, sometimes, depending on who they are, they're going to try to be sneaky.
Yes,
They're going
ma'am.
to try to manipulate that. They're going to try to do something different. So you also have to be present enough that they know I really can't pull but so much off on her because she going to
Mm-hmm.
catch me. I think that they need to know that the boundaries that you set are real boundaries.
Yep. And I think that's why it comes back into like what you were saying before. Like you gotta be involved in what your kid is involved in. Because at the end of the day, you need to know your kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know I was the type of teenage girl that if you didn't let me do it, I was gonna find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no, as soon as you told me no, I immediately started scheming on how I'm going to do this anyway. So there was never anything where I was like, oh, she said no, that's a barrier. It was not a barrier for me. So I think you got to know your kid. Like if you have a kid who is more obedient, then maybe it works to just tell them no. But if you
Right.
know, which is most teenage girls, she's going to be dipping and doing it anyway, like you got to be more strategic. And I'm glad that you said that about sending your girlfriends to the mall. Like that's strategy. And sometimes we don't think as parents that parenting takes strategy, and it really does. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough to just yell at the kid and tell the kid what they can't do. You really got to think strategically about how your child is going to interpret the words that just came out of your mouth. And like you said, it would not have worked for you to be at the mall, because then
Mm-mm.
it's like, oh, you don't trust me and I'm gonna avoid you anyway, and now I'm gonna be mad at you. But sending your girlfriends, like that's perfect because they don't know you sent them.
Right. They have no idea. They just think it's a small world. You know, Pittsburgh is 2 degrees of
Mm-hmm.
separation. Okay. Think what you want. But I think something you said is critical, knowing your child. You have to know your child's strengths and you have to know your child's personalities, because if you're honest with yourself, the kid that you had around 2 years old is the kid you have. Their personalities
Listen.
pop in really, really early. So if you have a kid who's determined, like you describe yourself to be, Muffy, your kid is determined. So you need to understand that. And so you can't tell a determined kid no. You have to tell a determined kid, okay, well, we're going to walk or we're going to take the bus. You know what I mean? Like they're going to do it. So you have to know that about your kid. You also have to have an ear to hear. Sometimes as parents, when the teacher is telling you your kid oh no, not my child.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, don't.
Girl.
I'm not saying that you have to agree that that teacher is right, because we do have teachers, specifically with our brown children, who sometimes trying to paint a picture that is not a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not that's, you still have to pay attention to that. But when they start telling you about their tendencies, saying that your kid is over talking them, that your kid is not focused, you keep that in the back of your mind, because sometimes your kid is beginning to display their true personalities outside of their boundaries because they know
Mm-hmm.
it's not accepted within their boundary.
Yep.
That's a part of the personality you have to understand about your kid as well, because now you have to help them navigate, how are you going to make it in life being this type of person? I can tell you don't be this way, but if you are this way, now I've not given you any tools to equip you to deal with it, because I only told you don't do it. Don't be that way. Oh,
Yep.
well, if you think you got the right answer all the time and you got a smart mouth with your teacher, you're going to use that smart mouth out in the community. You're going to use it when you're confronted with your peers. Have I equipped you to handle that, to own that, to use that as a strength? Or are you now weak and ill equipped because you've only used it in secret?
And also, if you, as a parent, I feel like if you keep reiterating to your child that he or she is not doing something that he or she is actually doing, it also puts them into a state of denial. like it puts them into a state where they begin to deny and lie to themselves about the behaviors that they are exhibiting. And then it becomes really difficult for the child to change course,
Right.
because it's like, no, I don't do that, even though the child knows that the child is behaving that way.
Mm-hmm.
But since mom is okay, if it's okay for me to lie to mom about it, then it's okay for me to lie to myself about it. And then that's where you have a really big problem, and you chances are the child has a problem that they're not going to work out until adulthood, when they fall on their face 25 times. And that's what we don't want, you know. But I also wanted to ask you about warning signs. I was reading something. I'm going to read this quote real quick.
Okay.
There was a study that came out that was showing that suicide attempts among Black children have increased, and it says suicide attempts among Black children and teenagers have increased by 73% since 1991, according to data published in the Journal of Pediatrics this month. And this is in the month of November. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for teenagers in the U.S., but over the period studied, suicide attempts decreased among teens in every ethnic group except for African Americans. So I wanted to talk about warning signs, like not necessarily even warning signs for suicide, but just warning signs that your child is mentally not well.
Yeah, that one is a big one. It's heavy. I have a couple of girls that I'm working with now that are cutters. Which is typically something that we thought was what white people did. Black people weren't
Mm-hmm.
cutters. That's not a true statement. They just were known for it, and we were not known for it. But at the end of the day, it was still happening. That comes with being able to listen, though. When your kid says, like, I can't, or I'm stupid, or it's too much, I'm tired, I don't want to, we tend to give that pep talk. You can do it. You can do anything. Set your mind to it. You're capable. You're smart. You're brilliant. You're beautiful. But if your brown girl is telling you, I feel like I'm ugly and my skin is too dark, and you've given that pep talk about black is beautiful, and she's still saying, I'm ugly, you got to dig deeper. In
Mm-hmm.
spite of what you're telling her, while she might hear it in here, she doesn't feel beautiful. She doesn't feel bold. She doesn't feel like she can conquer the world. In here, she's hurting. And you're telling her, no, baby, put your mask on, because I'm telling you black is beautiful and you're capable and you're powerful and you can do all things and you're intelligent. We got to be careful, because we come from a generation or a time period where we affirm, where we lift up, where we can do all things, and we put on that super cape. You got to hear your kids when they're singing a different tune.
Yeah.
You got to be attentive, and you've got to hear. Or we come from a generation where perfect attendance in school matters. You're going to go to school. You're going to go to school. You're going to show up. And your baby's telling you, Mom, I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm anxious. I don't want to go to school because the bully is coming at me. And excuse me, they might not use those words. But Mommy, I don't want to go. Okay, time out. Let's take today off. Let's take today off. Learn to give them that break. Learn to help them. Um, Learn to recognize when your child is anxious.
Yeah.
Pay
Yeah, I
attention to
think
how they're eating. Are they eating too fast? Are they picking over their food when normally they like? So we as moms now have to slow down and pay attention so that we can see it. Because sometimes we're so busy running. If you got more than one, or if your kids have an age gap, you got teenagers and toddlers. Whoa, you want me to slow down and pay attention to my teenager, and I got toddlers at home and my man ain't
mm-hmm.
acting right? Oh, that's tough. But that's the sacrifice that we have to make as moms for our kids, to listen in. Having family discussions and creating routines at home where we sit at the table on Thursday nights. Thursday nights is taco night, and we all go around the table and we talk about, what's my struggle? What am I struggling with? How can we
Yeah.
help you with your struggle? Like creating those reprieves within their normal everyday life could help. but just not ignoring it. And if you think that the concern is greater than what you can handle, if you have a kid who's cutting, if you have a girl who is bulimic and she's throwing up because she wants that hourglass waist because she's watched way too much reality TV and nobody has a belly on reality TV, but she does.
Mm-hmm.
If you see those signs, seek the help. Get the
Yes.
counseling. Get the counseling. If you want to get spiritual counseling and therapy, like, do those things, but don't, I saw something on Facebook today. It was a clip from an article, and it was a person, and over top of their head was all these balls of yarn entangled together. And the therapist was sitting there taking the yarn back, rolling it into a nice little ball. And it reminded me that therapy just helps you sort out your feelings and your
Yeah.
thoughts. That's all it really is somebody who can listen without that bias. They can help you sort through it. Kids might need that too.
Mm-hmm.
Kids might
And
need it too.
Kimberly D said kids need mental health days too.
Hmm.
And I want to point out that a mental health day for your kid is a mental health day for you too, because it's cathartic to talk to your children, especially when you have a busy life and you don't get to do that on a day-to-day basis. It makes mom feel better when she can go to work the next day knowing, yeah, I had that conversation with my daughter or my son, and I feel good about the place that we're in, even if we got work to do. But I want to point that out, that a mental health day for your child is for them, undoubtedly, but it's for you too, because the family works better when everybody feels good, when
Hmm.
everybody at least knows what everybody is facing. But
Right.
it's hard, like you said, when you have, different family dynamics. And that piece that you said about slowing down, like, y'all know I'm an advocate of that. Like, I know there's been many times in my life where I'd be like, yep, I'm out. I'll see y'all in 3 months or 6 months or whenever, because I know when I've had too much. Like, I just know. And I don't, because I've had the mental breakdowns, and I've had to go to therapy, and I've had to be like, yo, what's more important, this or me? And I think we have to be transparent with each other in that. And if you are a person who in the past, like myself, has struggled mentally, you have to know when you've had enough,
Yeah.
because you having enough is not just affecting you, it's affecting your kids too, because they're leaning on you whether you see it or not. Even when they're teenagers, they're still leaning on us, and they
Yeah.
need us so so much.
And in this
So,
world of social media, kids are overstimulated.
listen, I'm
So it's
overstimulated.
important.
I'm overstimulated most days. But I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about what exactly, like, what does Daughters of Zion look like for young girls? Like, what are you doing with them that you're having such phenomenal results?
So it started with a concept of popping pizza. And so we get together on Friday nights and we sit around with Capri Suns, not pop, but popping pizza. And initially, I just kind of let them talk and I kind of hear, what they're saying. I always have a topic and a program intended. Sometimes their issues kind of lead the discussion. We start too by building relationship amongst the girls. Sometimes my cohorts of girls have known each other before they've come, but many times they're just meeting each other. So in our first quarter, it really is getting to know each other and building that trust amongst the girls who are in the room, creating that standard of safety in the circle. But then we just kind of build and we talk about our friendships. What kind of friendships have we had? What kind of experiences have we had? Trying to see, have we had all positive friendships? Have we experienced bullying? Very quickly, you'll find out if you've had inappropriate friendships, if there's toxic relationships, that kind of thing comes out. We talk about boundaries. We talk about what it means to use your voice, to vocalize what your personal boundaries are, what you will and you will not tolerate. And that's really for their own safety. A lot of my girls start with me around sixth grade. So for the most part, they are not sexually active or sexually interested. So trying to create an opportunity to help them navigate through that before they get there is very helpful. Sometimes our girls have already been exposed when I get them, and so it's a different approach. But for my younger girls, I'm definitely trying to help them understand that they have a voice and their yes is yes and their no is no. and their maybe is a no. And working through that, then we start talking about family dynamics. What kind of relationship they have with their mothers, their fathers, their mother's significant others. All those different family dynamics that we have going on. To one, let them know that whatever your dynamic is, it works for your family. And trying to break down those comparisons that we have. Well, she has a mommy and a daddy, and I don't have a daddy, so something's wrong with me. No, that's not really what that means. Because if her mommy and daddy are toxic, and your mother is strong, and your family life is good, then she's not better than you because she has a daddy and you don't have a daddy. And trying to break down some of those myths, with the goal being that they are growing up confident, that they are bold, and that they walk in their authentic selves, whatever that means. So those are the types of things that we do. So a lot of character development, a lot of self awareness, a lot of self work. We don't really do self-esteem. We do self-worth, because I believe that self-esteem is how you feel about other people's perception of you. Self-worth is how you feel about you. So it's nice if you feel great about me and I feel great about that, but what if you think I suck?
Absolutely.
Now what am I to do if self-esteem is what it's all about? It's not really all about self-esteem. It's about self-worth. Who am I? And no matter what space I'm in, can I figure out how to stand in myself in that space? Because as they get
Absolutely.
older, their environments are going to change. Schools are going to change. If they go to college, work environment, things are going to happen. And again, I found that so many women have dealt with toxic relationships, unhealthy relationships, abusive relationships, because as women, they didn't know how to navigate that relationship when they were on their own. And so if you can navigate as a girl, when you get booed up, you can still navigate and find your way. But so often we just didn't know. Nobody walks into an unhealthy relationship. Nobody walks into abuse saying, hey, here I am, take advantage of me. You walk in naive, not understanding. And a lot of times by the time you catch it, you're way in it and you don't really
Yep.
know how to run and get out of it. And so I have found that them understanding their self-worth empowers them to be able to navigate through that with a little bit more success than a lot of women were able to.
Absolutely. And y'all can find more about Daughters of Zion at daughtersofzion101.org. That's right, Latifa, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So we're getting ready to close out. I just want to know if there's anything that we didn't talk about that you feel like moms need to know.
Um, just continuing to do that self-work, because a lot of times our fears for our girls are about the broken pieces that are still inside of us. So if we can do that work and continue doing that work to heal up on the inside, we serve our daughters a lot better than we do from hiding from the things that we're afraid of. So I just think facing our fears and finding networks like Brown Mamas to cultivate those relationships where you can do that.
And you're getting ready to start having sessions with adult women, you said, right?
Yes. Yes, I will post more information in Brown Mamas when it's appropriate. But there are women's roundtables. We host about 20 women at a time. And again, just working through the very things that we have talked about. So we are about 2 sessions in. So this is something that I have just started. Um, so getting my feet wet in that space, and I love it.
Gotcha. So y'all will be hearing more about that from Latifa. She'll post it in the Brown Mamas group when she starts her next session. But in the meantime, just be well for your kids. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you got to make a big to do about it. I always tell my sons, don't make something that's this big, this big. Sometimes not, making having being well for your kids just means taking an hour for yourself or 5 minutes for yourself if that's all that you have. But thank you so much for joining us this evening or night, this night, Latifa. We appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of our community. Latifa is one of I call her a veteran mom because she's been in the group since pretty much day one. And if you got questions, feel free to tag her. This video will be at the top of the group for the next week. So you can watch it anytime. If you want to, if you just started watching, you can watch the replay and hear Latifa talk about reality TV and its effects on our daughters, as well as, which blew me away at the beginning when she was talking about the difference between the good girls and the bad girls. So make sure you watch the replay. Thank you so much, Latifa.
Thank you.
All right. Wait a minute. If anybody wants to reach you, should they just go to daughtersofzion101.org, or what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is actually on Facebook. I'm out there under Latifah Miller. You can always reach me and tag me in the Brown Mamas group. But yes, you can also reach me on the website as well.
All right. I'll
There's a
drop that in the
contact
comments
us.
for y'all.
All right, cool.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Latifa. Good night,
Thanks.
ladies. Thank you so much for tuning in.